Hello. everyone.
Hello.
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 Hi.
Welcome to the sixth episode of Vegan Stew. I am Sangeeta from Tilted Planet, and Marla and I are your hosts for tonight. And thank you to our sponsors, Terra Seeds. We invite our viewers to subscribe to our channel, our YouTube channels. So, tonight we're going to talk about raising vegan children. But before that, let's have a round of introduction. Helene from Triangle Veg Fest and Virtual Veg Fest Live. She's having technical issues today, but maybe she will join us. Marla Rose from Vegan Street.
Hey.
Angela Ivan, Vegan Pop Eats. Laura Ball, Plant Powered Studios. Kimberly Winters, did you bring the hummus? And as we always do, we start with current events.
Hi, so thank you for the introduction, Sangeeta of Tilted Planet. I thought that this was an interesting news item this week, and it's kind of it's not actually news to those of us who follow these things, but it was a story in The Guardian, not a vegan publication or even vegan advocacy in the story. But it was talking about how, the pandemic that we're currently experiencing is only one of many that are kind of chomping at the bit to become the next. I mean, they could all happen, but basically they talk about how in 50 countries across the world, there are as many as 8 avian or bird flus circulating that are as or more deadly than the coronavirus. There are some that are mutating and have killed people already. If you guys get back into the mindset of what we were like in February of 2020, this was still pretty, or January, it was still pretty new and nobody knew what it was going to end up being. So I know people like to poo-poo these things, but it's really just a disaster waiting to happen when you crowd environments that are stressful to begin with. It's almost an inevitability because we can't seem to be able to change our habits around these things. So I guess one thing that came to my mind is, and by the way, all coronaviruses are zoonotic. All originate in other species and cross over to humans. The avian flu is not zoonotic, but can affect humans. The one thing I thought about is what happens if there is an outbreak, a big crossover event, like what we've experienced in a country that is also hit by a human-created weather event, like a massive flood or a tornado or something like that. What if these things collide? And I don't want to go there, but how can you not? It just seems irresponsible to not think about our role in these things. It's not to say that animal agribusiness causes everything and going vegan fixes everything, but it is to say we could fix a lot just by this. So anyway, I just kind of have my eye on that story and just hoping that people will eventually do the right thing and somehow we'll get through to people. So anyway, I'm just curious if you guys have any thoughts about this.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I want to, too, it's not vegan so much more than just what you eat. It's also about being socially and, environmentally responsible. And so that's what I like about it, because we've all said this, I'm sure, a million times. It's not just about what you consume, it's your actions. that make you vegan. So it's, buying a recycled plastic bag instead of a leather bag. It's recycling or composting your scraps. It's doing these things and doing your part, whether how small or insignificant it might seem. It's the little things combined together that create a big impact. Yeah. And so and to your point, Marla, I mean, a lot of this, I've been reading stuff on that too. What was, it was a few months ago, was H1N5. I think they were talking about as the next big thing, and it infected 2 of the first humans in Russia, I believe it was. Yeah. And I remember one of the scientists just saying that COVID looks like a dress rehearsal compared to this, and that it's going to kill 1 in 2 people. And a lot of that will continue to happen. I mean, we just saw, what was it, the Black Plague, one of the first cases of Black Plague, because the ice caps are melting. And so those diseases and viruses are being, exposed again for the first time in how many thousands of years, hundreds of years, whatever it may be. So to your point, this is just the beginning. But it's, stupid shit like, stop coal mining too. I mean, there's all these tiny things, and that's such a big deal right now in Virginia. And it's just like, how is this still an issue? How are we still battling?
It became politicized and right wing, left wing, just like getting the vaccine, despite what we know. So, but yeah, it's not to be Debbie Downers here, but it's just this, how do we? This should all be very, these should all be news stories that make people stop and change. So how does this eventually happen? So
well, and also a lot of these come from people eating meat.
Yeah.
So quit eating living beings, and we might, get somewhere that's a little bit healthier and not as scary.
Right. How many more signs do we need?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. It's just like I keep wondering when we're gonna hit the bottom. You know what I mean? That
complete collapse.
I mean, there are species that have disappeared, and we might be one that disappears next. And that will be our own doing. We might be the first species that causes its own extinction.
Yeah,
I believe that.
Self-extinction.
I think we will.
Yeah.
Well,
I think something that's gonna...
right.
Yeah.
I think the thing is that, like, climate change, the concept of it is too abstract for people. Like, even though there are, humans who are suffering because of it now, even though we can connect the dots between, scary weather events and climate change, people still don't want to.
Yes, that's because collectively we are doing this. The climate change is a result of the collective consciousness. But when we make these own decisions, we are making these individual decisions, and individually we are very myopic. Like, what is my next hour or next day look like? That's all we can focus on. But we can't think about the whole picture, like as we are living our lives. And that's going to be quite catastrophic.
Well, it is, and especially too, I was seeing this, $1 trillion bill that's supposed to be passed, right? And all the things that probably aren't going to go through. And one of those is climate change. The whole portion about helping clean up our climate and make it better in this country. And that's one of the things that's going to get axed after how many natural disasters, So we're going to take out the biggest chunk of money in history to pay for all these things. And yet climate doesn't seem to be an important thing on, the US's list. It's so frustrating. And especially because, to your point, Sangeeta, we are so reactive as a society and not proactive.
Right.
And we all think, well, what does it matter if I don't do it?
Right. And I think
and we don't care about how it affects somebody else. And I think that that's been the big eye opener for me, at least during this pandemic, is just the lack of caring.
Right.
about
Oh
your
my
fellow
God.
neighbor and, even your fellow Trump supporter. Like, you don't even care about them. And that just drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. Because we're all in this together. It's like same team. Same team.
It should be, but
Yeah.
I think they did a real number on all of us by this whole, team left, team right kind of
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
mentality.
I'm team stay alive on this planet.
Yeah.
That's my team.
That's funny.
But maybe that's one of nature's way of, like, controlling our population, that some
Right.
people will just not understand. Fear sometimes is good for you, right? But if you don't understand that there is some danger in it, then you will not survive.
Yep. Well, natural selection, right?
As we know from the pandemic, as we know from just living in this world, that the actions of other people can uplift or hurt others, and it's like we're still engaging in the world as though we're all just separate little bubbles, and that is, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to get this bad, it doesn't have to be this catastrophic, and I think a lot of it comes down to this idea that so many people are just personally feeling disempowered. Like, what does it matter? What does it matter if I do this? What does it matter if I do that? I'm just one person. But forgetting that, how powerful it is when we come together. It doesn't have to be all of us, but a lot of us, we can.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that always boggles my mind is, what can one person do that has COVID and walks into a public space? What does that one person do to contribute? I mean, it affects everybody. It can. And so it's still amazing to me that we still have not learned from this, the things that we really should have learned. It's really frustrating.
What a stupid species we are.
Yes.
Honestly, it's so frustrating because I think so often we are depicted as this brilliant, species that, but other species know to not poop in their own bed. Other species know that, that's how they survive. Our species doesn't get any of this. So anyway, hi, Mike Sterla.
Yeah, there is.
Yvonne is holding up a lipstick.
but other species don't have egos.
Yeah.
So with us, it's one of those things that we feel that we deserve certain things, or we need to,
entitled to certain.
Yes, we feel entitled, because I remember during COVID, everyone, and I'm preface this by saying that, I understand human touch. I understand, wanting to see someone. I get it. But the lengths that people took in order just to have a little, I'm out here kicking it and partying and doing those things, I couldn't even wrap my head around it. And maybe because I'm an only child, where, if I need friends, I can create one, if that's, what it is. But when they said to sit down, that's exactly what I did. Right. I went to go get groceries, and of course I did a walk in the park. I did my exercise in the park because they had shut down the gyms and stuff like that. But to be like, oh, I'm going over so and so's house, or oh, I'm gonna take this trip to Georgia because Georgia didn't shut down. If you go and get it, you bring it back home.
It's so infuriating.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like they have constructed this thing in their brain, so many, that they're rebelling. That that's the hill they want to die on, apparently, is, standing up for their right to spread an infectious disease.
I can understand it.
How
awesome. Like, we're on Zoom now. We are on we're here. Right. You're coming from Chicago. You're coming from California. I can see y'all.
It's porous. Yeah, I
I
don't.
can see y'all.
Right, exactly. Borders are porous, which is not.
And if I want to dance, I can be.
Yeah.
All that.
Totally, yes, I totally get it. Like,
But I'm not getting COVID.
Yeah. Oh, my favorite was, every time I had a friend, we're not friends anymore for the obvious, but I had a friend who's like, well, you just can't stop living your life because of COVID. You're just not living your life.
Because COVID.
And I'm like, oh, because I'm not flying from California to Mississippi back to Georgia to back to, so you can go on vacation. Like that's me not living my life, or is that me being responsible?
again,
but also you can live your life, just wear mask and maintain distance and live your life
and not get on a plane.
COVID can in your life. I know people who died from COVID, so it can in your life. And the issue that I have is that you didn't need it that bad.
No,
like I understand you cannot fathom, being a year on, and it's like being in prison. I get it, except you can go outside, you can go get groceries. It's not the same as in not to be able to go anywhere.
Right.
If you felt, there's nobody that I felt that I was like, oh my God, if I don't see them today, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? No, I did on the phone. I did Zoom calls.
But also, sorry, go ahead.
I felt like I say this. I felt like COVID was a way of sitting everyone down and also making people aware. It was like a reset.
Yes.
Because it made people aware of what they valued in life and what they didn't value in life. And the ones who didn't value certain things, it showed. And the ones who did value certain things, it showed. It reset our mindset, as in, why should I be going to work from 9 to 5 all day long when when I was in COVID, I got it done in 4 hours. Or I got it done in 2 hours.
That's what we should be taking away from this experience is how can we take some of the lessons we've learned from this time? Like that, I mean, you're seeing that with workers, using their collective bargaining to change conditions. That's what we should be doing. Not how can I cram myself into a bar with a bunch of other sweaty people and become a human vector of a disease.
And then COVID also made you realize what was important. There were families who got reunited because they spent so much time together. There were divorces because you were like, yo,
yes,
I don't have to do this.
Right. I had a couple friends that actually created divorce registries instead of wedding registries. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, this should happen.
I think COVID really got people together because now jobs are realizing that the way that they were treating their workers,
people aren't going to put up with it. Right. They're realizing it. Right.
Why would I be stressed out when you and I both know that you want me to work 9 to 5 just so you can see me? And truth be told, those of us who work 9 to 5, you come to work at 9, your work is probably done by 12.
2 hours, right?
But you're over here playing this game, as in, let me count the pins, or let me walk to the bathroom 85 times to see that I'm busy. Come on now.
It's so true. And I think I'm sorry, Sangeeta, you were starting to say something, which you probably forgot at this point.
No, what I was going to say was that if you thought being stuck in the house for COVID was difficult, then this is a time to reflect on what we're doing to those animals who are stuck in small cages or tied to a small leash or just limited in their freedom of agencies over their own bodies.
Absolutely.
This is a time to reflect on that. And I think that was one of the things that I was able to discuss with my daughter, which then brings us to our topic, which is raising. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, Angela
Angela, you have a topic to share.
Well, this will wrap it up. Well, I do have good news. The good news is bio milk which is a mammatory. I cannot say the word mammatory.
Memory.
Memory.
Memory tech
Which of
company.
the memories?
They just secured $21 million to be able to provide breast milk to the masses. They found a way to be able to make breast milk outside of the human body. And that's a great thing because there are a lot of mothers who weren't able to breastfeed. And the nutrients that come from breast milk is immeasurable because it helps with the growth of your kids. It helps with the mentality of the kids. And it's also something that a lot of women feel like they've been, dealt a hand that they weren't able to provide nutrients for their children. So I think that it's a dope idea. It's out of North Carolina. So
it's phenomenal.
That's amazing.
So do we know who their target market is? Is it going to be just for infants, or they are looking
They're putting it in the market? Like you'll be able to go out there and I guess you can buy it like almond milk.
Like instead of cow's milk, you buy human milk. That's made in the lab.
Is it in the milk section, or is it like?
They haven't said where it will be, but they're.
I don't want to get that by accident.
It says they're bringing cell cultured human milk to market.
Yeah. It's going to bring out the kink people, but I think that's okay.
I was just thinking that.
But whether it grosses you out or not, I think it will make a lot of people think about why am I not grossed out by the idea of drinking cow's milk?
Right.
But I am grossed out at the idea of drinking human milk, even though it wasn't expressed by a human, just reproduced.
I think it's going to turn a lot of people vegan.
That's amazing.
I think it really is.
Yeah.
And,
yeah,
carnivore zero, vegans too.
And so many babies, whose mothers can't, produce breast milk. And that's a fairly common problem. They have to use dairy-based, often, almost always, formula, and so much of the population is allergic or has issues digesting it. So that's phenomenal. So
I can't wait to see how the people react. I want to see the commercials.
Right?
Right? What is that going to look like?
It's going to be like, you can get the milk without the titty.
Right.
I hope it's like women in like a grass field saying that they're grass fed for your range,
Oh my God. It's going to be insane, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm totally here for it. As long as they don't accidentally buy it thinking it's like cashew milk or something, I'm good with it. It's all good. I'm not, just to be fair, to be honest, I'm not grossed out by breast milk. I'm a proud breast
milk.
Right. Oh, I'm not grossed about it. I'm just thinking about going into the store and it says human milk.
Yeah.
So we've gotten to the point where we are drinking human milk, but aren't we? I mean, if you really want to, that's still the same as drinking mammal milk,
right?
That's so it's like,
I don't think. Well, I mean,
I think it should be in a separate space. Like it shouldn't be like with the almond milks and stuff like that. I think it should be like, a big sign that says for mothers or for the gay couples who are together who can't do it. I think it should be like that, like a baby
child section,
like a baby infant baby section. Like Target has the baby section,
like on the aisle.
My guess is it would be with formula, which is shelf stable. I mean, if they want it to be successful, probably want to try to have it there.
They'll do it simply.
Well, now, so last time we talked about, Laura at some point is gonna take the challenge of drinking banana milk on the show. And I want to ask if any one of you is up for drinking that milk on the show.
Hell no.
No,
that's where I draw the line.
I would give it to my cat. I can't wait for lab-grown meat for cats. Oh my God. That's affordable. I am dying for this. So anyway.
Yes. Yay,
Oh, there is Helene.
Most frustrating
So
25 minutes of my life.
Helene, because you came in late, you've been assigned the person to drink the human breast milk.
Yes.
So just so you know.
On the show. Look at that.
Where am I getting this human breast milk?
Matter of fact, from BioMilk.
Coming to a store near you.
BioMilk out of North Carolina just secured $21 million to be able to have human breast milk that has been, made in a lab, and it's coming to a market. They're wanting to, put it in the market. And I thought it was a great idea because, there's a lot of mothers who aren't able to give breast milk because of the nutrients and stuff like that. So they found a way to be able to have it. And we were all talking about, like, is it going to be in the milk section? And, you reach for it and, ooh, I got the human milk,
Well, haven't you? I'm going to talk to Marla and Sangeeta for a second. Didn't you taste your breast milk?
I did.
I was like, no.
Sangeeta said yes, right? You did?
Yes.
I did.
Yeah.
Of course I did.
Marla, you never tasted it?
Of course I didn't.
I tasted it when I was a baby.
Of course you didn't. I mean,
I was a baby,
your
I did.
breast like practically explode with milk and had to get on you. You never like went.
It just, I had almond milk. I had enough beverages to consume.
I didn't mean for you to
also
consume
not
it and like make
intrigued
chocolate milk out of it, but
I
your
was-
baby, your
No,
kid's drinking
I
it.
was just curious.
I was further not intrigued to eat my placenta, who knows,
Oh, I brought my placenta home and I buried that in my garden.
Yeah, I've heard of a lot of people doing that.
I thought you were supposed to put it in pill form and retake it.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And it has a lot of nutrients, but
Laura's
I
getting-
wouldn't
Laura's
go
Laura's
to
trying
that.
to throw up.
It
Me
looks
too.
so, but
I mean,
it looks
anything is
so
not
amazing
right.
though. Have you ever seen a placenta? It's so amazing. Wow.
Without
I mean, I did watch my birth once, and I think that's why I don't want to have kids now. But because it just looks so painful. But yeah, no, that's not. No, I would not drink my breast
That is
milk.
not my ministry. Thank you.
I'll stick to TVP, ladies.
I was a fairly crunchy hippie, mom when I gave birth in 2002, but it's still, that was for the farther edge folk. I was fine without having it.
Well, I think it's a great thing for there to be breast milk. I don't think it needs to be commercialized and on a shelf, but I think it's great because children that are breastfed I have so many benefits from that. And the longer you breastfeed, the less ailments your child could have as they grow, like some things like diabetes and obesity, and I was just having this conversation in Chattanooga with a woman at Chattanooga Veg Fest who's pregnant. Actually, she was pregnant. Yeah, they were talking about a doctor and a group that advised a woman to stop breastfeeding and give their baby Pedialyte instead of breast milk. And they were like, most of the comments were find a new pediatrician, because the healthiest and most amazing thing for a child, for a baby, any baby that is, human babies we'll talk about, is mama's milk.
Right.
Well, sometimes in a rare case, there could be lactose intolerance, and then you have to find a substitute. But it's very rare. Yeah.
Hey, should we move on to raising vegan kids?
Yeah, let's do that. So, Marla, I want to know, because you came into this game way before I did. So I want to hear from you.
Okay. So my son is 19. He was born in 2002. I'm not sure when your daughter was born, Sangeeta.
She was born in 2008.
Oh, okay. So, in that realm.
Yeah.
So when I had my son, I was already vegan, and knew I was going to be raising him vegan. There was like precious little information at the time. There was again 2002, 2001 when I was pregnant, and there's a book by Dr. Clapper that was helpful, and just like a little assorted odds and ends here and there. You know, you were lucky to find anything. It was important for me early on just to sort of have my ducks in a row, which is actually a vegan expression. It's talking about how good the mother duck is at keeping her ducks, like her baby ducklings, lined up. It has nothing to do with killing them. The rare metaphor. Anyway, um, but equally important for to me with raising a healthy child was to raise a child who had community and had a feeling of ownership as being a vegan. And so fairly early on in his life, I co-founded with other people a vegan family network. And again, this was before social media and all that. So we would have monthly potlucks, and Halloween being around the corner is making me think of how many times we had our Halloween party. It was like a big extravaganza with, I don't know, 60, 70 people, 30 kids, just tons of people. And our kids got to eat, vegan versions of the same things that their classmates were eating. So we made it really special. We made them all gift bags with all the parents contributed. So they'd end up leaving with like a bag that had like 5 pounds of stuff in it. So it was just really important to me that he grew up with this sense of normalcy and, community. So the Vegan Family Network, Chicago Vegan Family Network, was a big part of that. And so,
And I did.
Sorry.
Sorry, I did the exact same thing that you did, Marla. That I started Triangle Veg Families Meetup, and then we did exactly the same thing. Everything we celebrated with the other vegetarian vegan families: vegan Easter, vegan Thanksgiving, vegan Halloween, vegan Diwali, vegan Christmas. We celebrated everything, and found a way. Also made really good lifelong friends in that process.
Same.
That my daughter grew up with, and along the way, like you were talking about Dr. Michael Clapper. By the time I became pregnant, Brenda Davis had already come up with a couple of books on raising vegetarian children and then vegan children. She has co-authored several books. Actually, her recent one is this.
Oh, okay.
This is a great book. I love any. You couldn't go wrong. You can pick up any book by Brenda Davis, and you will find great information on nutrition. And she's very scientifically minded, and just a lovely person also to know. And so those books, and then as my daughter was born, there are great children's story books like why we don't eat animals, and
Ruby Roth.
vegan is love, and there are more and more these days the story books. Also going to animal sanctuaries and making that connection with the animals and knowing them as an individual, as a sentient being. So what I think is we can just raise them with these values and compassion and fun, and then hopefully they own it. Because I remember that one time I was in India, and there some people were eating something that wasn't vegan, and it was a dessert. And so my daughter was quite disappointed, and I said to her that everything. She was 10 at that time. And I said to her that I don't want you to be disappointed. You get to make your own decisions from now on. And she said that I am not disappointed because I don't get to eat it. I'm saying it's not fair because it's not vegan. I wish it was vegan. And um, so I think at that point, at the age of 10, she had owned the veganism. And there's
Right.
always, Marla, did you get these comments that say, hey, why are you forcing her to be a vegan?
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I definitely did. I got a lot of, well, aren't you going to let him choose? As though I was raised with choice around what I
Right. Exactly.
and
Exactly.
I don't think it's right to propagandize to your child. And the fact is that our son was raised with way more awareness, age appropriate awareness of why we were doing what we were doing. And at every stage of the game, I always knew and made a decision with myself before he was born. Like, I don't know who this human being is going to be, what kind of person. He could be very, conservative, very anti his dad and myself. But I always said to myself that, like, as long as it's my money, I'm not going to support animal agribusiness in any capacity. So if it's so important for him that he eat these things or that he support these industries, he can figure out a way to make that money to pay for it and bring it home and or whatever. But like, thankfully, we never, it was never an issue. And in fact, and I think part of it is that it was always presented to him as, you know, a really fabulous, it was always presented to him with this feeling of abundance rather than scarcity, this feeling of,
Mm.
this community that's warm and embracing and full of dynamic and interesting people and kids his age, and you get to get treats every time. It was always presented as a great thing that he gets to do that's special for him, and so I think so much, you know he was also born just as a sensitive soul. I remember when he was 2, I was reading to him the Lorax, the Dr. Seuss book. And I was kind of like, we'd been reading the same books over and over again. And so I thought, I'm going to shuffle this one in because I'm so bored with what I'm reading. And if you know the story at all, I won't go into it. But like, when the last truffula tree is chopped down, I didn't realize, because he was 2, how much he was following along. He just cried out in this guttural way, and it just, like, it shocked me because he just gasped and cried out, and I'm getting teary thinking about it myself. But he just started wailing and just going, "No more teas, no more teas," meaning no
Oh,
more trees.
Jesus.
And I realized that, like, the next day, like, I calmed him down, just like, talked to him about make believe and story time and stuff like that. And next, few days, we took him to parks to see trees and to show him that trees are still real and they're still here. But I remember that night, my husband said to me, "We're not going to have any issues with this kid wanting to stay vegan," because he was already emotionally so present with that. And
Right.
I'm curious if anyone else is, maybe wanting to become a parent one day, or is an auntie, loves being in the auntie role,
Laura's like, no.
indecisive about it. I'm sorry. So let us know what your thoughts are on raising kids, whether you're interested or not. Angela, Yvonne.
Well, I feel that I'll be taking on the role of the auntie. Um,
That's an
but
important role.
I know, but I feel that with children, they shouldn't they should be able to express themselves. But I also find that children only express themselves from what their parents show them. So if you have a household where there's no meat or there's nothing like that, that's all that they know. So that's what they will gravitate to. So it's not until outside forces comes that they desire something else.
Right.
So for me, if I was to have children, I would want them to be vegan. I wouldn't want them to be exposed or to eat anything that has the chemicals and things of that nature in it, because I see what the food is doing to kids. Because it, like, I have I have this conversation all the time. Back in the meat that, like, back in the day, or different spaces that it came from, is not the same meat that we have right now. So with that being said, a lot of our meats are pumped full of chemicals. So that means that those chemicals, make our children mature faster physically. And once you mature faster physically, what comes along with that is the desires of things that you might not be able to handle, because your body might look like you're 15, but your mentality is still, I'm a 10-year-old.
Right.
Because some of the kids are starting their cycles early, or just different things that chemicals may or may not contribute to.
Dairy.
So for me,
Yeah.
I would feel like, it's your parents' responsibility to keep them away from some things. And if you can't find a way to, I don't know, live on a farm or be able to grow certain things or things of that nature, but and I'm coming from someone who, excuse me, used to eat meat,
Right.
used to eat
We
dairy.
all did.
We all
You
do.
know what I'm saying? But I find that, children should have, like, whole foods, and to try to, keep keep them in their space of maturity as much as possible. You know what I'm saying? And I know that it's probably um a wealthy type of lifestyle, because it's the moms who can be at home with their kids all day, or their moms who have nannies who are just like, I made their baby food and carrots and things of that nature, because majority of us, not us, but majority of the women are working mothers. So I would want, or I would hope that if I was to choose to do that, or to get with someone who has a child, that I would be able to afford to be able to do that for them, or to be able to find a way where, even if it's like a meal prep service for babies,
Yeah.
where you just sending it in and I'm putting it in the refrigerator, but I know that there's no chemicals or anything like that in their bodies, because I know what happens when we mature faster than what we should. And I know that, and in case in point, because, like, when we were growing up, you could tell the difference between, the girls and women. But now fast forward, these men are looking at these girls, these little girls, and they're just like, oh, but she was giving me the, like, she wasn't giving you nothing. She's 10 years old. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But in their minds, they're seeing the breasts, or they're seeing the hips, or they're seeing the butt and things of that nature.
Right.
So, and I'm not saying that it's right for them to even desire a child, but I as a parent, I would want to try my hardest to play my part with what I could control, as far as what they're putting in their mouths and things like that. Because I come from, parents and grandparents who didn't have a discussion about what you want to eat. You were either eating or you want to bed hungry. You had two choices. You didn't have no, well, I don't feel like I want to eat. Bam. You about to eat this macaroni, or you gonna call it a day, or you going to bed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So and I'm not saying it's an advocacy, because there are issues with that type of parenting as well. But I think that when it's coming to the betterment, the better health, or just health thoughts, it's a non-negotiable talking to a child. A child cannot tell me what they're going to feel like and what they're not going to feel like doing when I'm thinking of the overall picture of how that they will be, maneuvering in this world.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Helene.
Yeah. Yeah, Helene had her spatula spoon up.
Yeah, because I'm back home. So it's nice to be back on my computer. There's at the events, a lot of kids come to the events and a lot of parents are there, and I will have conversations with them, and I will ask them first if they're okay with me, the non-vegan parents, right? And I get permission to spill and say what I need to say about what they're feeding their kids. And it's hard because I want to be as blunt as possible, but as caring as possible to say, when you feed your kid that hot dog or that hamburger that's not plant-based, and you feed them cheese and milk and dairy, you're putting cancer, diabetes, heart disease, strokes, high cholesterol into your kids. And the foundation for their adult bodies is being created right now. Like right from birth on, you're creating the foundation for when they become our age or younger, just adults. And when you fill that body with crap, your adult body becomes crap, and you
Right.
propagate the diseases that we're all trying to avoid, and that we've learned at a later stage in life, except for Laura, that let's change how we eat so that we can put off the possibility of having heart disease, diabetes, strokes, cancer, the number one, number two, number three killers, albeit not COVID world. So you can I don't see part of what I have with parents and their children, and when they feed them the hot dogs and the horrible crappy food, is they're your children. You want the best for your children. You want them to be as healthy as possible. And if you really did your research, you would know that bologna and dairy and cheese and milk is not the best thing for your child. And then Angela Vaughn's right, the antibiotics, the how the animals are raised, the maturing of the children prior to them, prior to when we matured, right? Because of our age for most of us. It's really scary stuff. I don't have children. It was something I wanted to do. I'm fully menopausal, so it's not going to happen. Yes.
I was
However,
wondering if you were just partially menopausal.
oh no, I'm full on.
Just kidding.
It's done. No more periods. So yeah. So I mean, so there was a point in my life where I was like, okay, I want to do this, and it didn't happen. And the last few years, Steven's like, oh, let's do this. Yeah. I was like, I don't have the patience anymore to do this.
Right.
Or the money.
Your events,
right? 50 years old. My kids, I'm 70 when they're 20. That's not, no.
Yeah. Angela and then Kimberly.
I just want to say that before, I understand what you were saying as far as feeding bologna and stuff like that, but we need to find a way where veganism can be affordable to those to people, because the reason why people are feeding their children bologna, I remember a big thing of bologna was like $2.
Yep.
And you slap that on some Wonder Bread and some Velveeta cheese or whatever the cheese was a moment, that was feeding you. That was your lunch and a bag of Utz barbecue. That was your lunch. And if people can't afford it, they're not thinking about the health issues. They're thinking about, my kid is not hungry.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
That's a good
to
point.
go on with you, Helene, you can still have a baby. If that's what you want to do. People doing it all the day. And if that's a desire of your heart, go for it.
I think
I don't get periods anymore. I can't have a baby.
Right.
You don't
There's
have to
doctors
have.
that can get you a baby.
There are ways to have babies if you want it.
I
You
think
don't.
Just stop. Just
veggie
women
man.
just
Okay,
stop.
let's not go there. All right, Kimberly goes
I'm
next.
No, I was I'm thinking about, it's kind of going in a different direction here, but I have a question for the moms. When there was a brief period where JP and I were trying to have kids, and so we had kind of been talking to our friends about it, and all of our friends already had kids. And I remember that a few of them were like, well, you're not going to like make them be vegan, right? And because JP wasn't vegan yet. And the answer, of course, was yes, they are going to be vegan. And there was this major concern. They were like, no, 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 just you wait. Kids are very picky. You know, my oldest went through a phase where they only ate white foods. And then my youngest went through a phase where he only ate yellow foods. And when your kids won't eat anything, you will feed them whatever you can. And they were convinced that this was going to be a major issue for anyone trying to raise vegan kids. So I'd love to hear from you two.
Yeah,
why
sure.
that's not true.
Can I go first? So it is true that children can be picky, but they go through phases for sure. Like for example, there was a time when my daughter ate khichdi every single day for her lunch and uttapam for her dinner. That's all she ate.
She's lucky.
And it's and you could call that picky, but also like their palate is very limited if they like something, and that is all the more reason to feed them food that is good for them, and they get maximum nutrients from the whatever you are feeding them. But raising them vegan is not a concern at all, regardless of whether your child is picky or not picky.
Yeah, my experience was so my son's always been into food, there was never I mean, I think there is the actual biological issues with tongues as they develop, palates as they develop and stuff like that, and I think we should not poo-poo that idea that certain things are unpalatable because of a different stage you're going through. So what I try to do is just generally offer a couple of options. It's not like I was jumping through hoops or anything like that, but try to engage him in what was interesting, and just try to do it that way. And we didn't go through long periods of pickiness, but again, that may just be my son's unique thing. I have lots of friends who are vegan parents who also didn't have issues, and if they did, they just figured them out. It's not that big of a deal, so I think from an early age I involved my son in the cooking process, going to farmers markets, cooking things out, trying something new, so I think that was generally probably a good thing. And now he's a great cook, he enjoys cooking, so I don't know if they're connected or not, but I don't know. Everyone told me I wasn't going to stay vegan, and I did. Everyone told me I wasn't going to cloth diaper, and I did. Everyone told me I was going to stop breastfeeding, and I didn't. Everyone, you know what I mean? It's just like, if other people quit something, that's fine, but that's their own story,
Right. And people don't, unless you're a vegan and you have walked on that path for a while, you won't realize how much of a variety there is to eat.
Yeah,
I think if you are not a vegan, then you're quite limited by how you get your protein and how. But once veganism actually opens so many other doors for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think that it's like the cuisines of the world. If you look at them, there's just so much interesting stuff that you can explore. And I know Helene is next, but I just wanted to say something really quickly. Is of course in our household we do prioritize eating an abundance of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and stuff like that. But I also think it's important for your kids to enjoy occasional treats just like we enjoy occasional treats. If your kid has classmates also who eat ham sandwiches. I think it's fine for you if your kid is intrigued by that and you have your vegan options to make it look like the same thing and they get to feel like they're experiencing something similar. I don't see the harm in that on occasion, you know. So anyway, Helene, you are next.
Children are products of the examples that are set by their parents. And the reason why the two of you didn't have problems with your child being overly picky is because you took the time and the energy to raise them with a variety of foods that are healthy and building their palate and their variety so that they can enjoy. And what you feed them is what they know to eat. The people with the yellow foods and the white foods, pretty sure the household probably had some pretty crappy food in it. So when
Yeah.
the kid got a hold of the white potato chips and the white sauce and the white, I don't even know, white bread and the white pasta, whatever it is, and that's all they wanted to eat, is because the household was filled with all that stuff. You bring variety, you bring culture, you take the time and the energy to do that, because raising kids isn't easy. It is the most difficult job on this planet. So I think second to teaching them in a school. So first to teaching them is second to, I don't even know, teaching them might be harder. So you just you did the right thing. And I hear it, Marla, same thing. I hear it from all the parents, the vegan parents I know, their kids are eating foods I know and knew. I amazing, and I love her. She's amazing. I've known
Who
her
is
for a
this?
number of years now. I've watched her, Sangeeta's daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Love her, love her, love
Yeah.
her, love her. Amazing, amazing young adult now. Not a kid anymore. She's a tiny little. She's the adult. She's grown up, and she eats what Dilla feeds her, which, if you look at that stream, is a lot of different foods for a number of years. I've never known her to like be at Thanksgiving and be like, I'm only eating,
Pasta or
this piece of
whatever.
lettuce, or I'm only eating bread.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Like, she doesn't want that. She wants the variety of
right.
food. And that's
She
what I'm
wants to
finding.
know.
And this is not just vegan families. Yeah, it's not just vegan families. If you raise your kid and take that time and energy to do that and you feed them healthy foods, their children are a product of the adults that are raising them. You do right by them, you can have good kids. That's just it. Laura, go ahead.
Yeah, so just being the vegan kid. One thing that I think that we didn't talk about tonight was the mental part of it, and what that does. Especially, this happened to me, the bullying. Where I grew up, I graduated with 90 people. I grew up in a village, no more than 2,000 to this day. And it was very Christian predominantly. Everybody loved to go hunting and shoot that 10-point buck type of thing in Michigan. And that was really, really hard. I mean, there were parents that wouldn't let me play with their kids because not eating meat hurt, their God. Which is crazy, right? And so I look at these vegan kids today and I'm like, I am so freaking jealous. Every single day, my entire elementary school, because my parents didn't have a lot of money, I had a peanut butter sandwich. Every single day. That was my hot lunch, was a peanut butter sandwich and a fruit cup. Every day. To this day, I cannot eat a peanut butter sandwich. I can't. Like, it instantly makes me feel nauseous. It's got to have that jelly.
Yeah.
But
I was wondering if it just was peanut butter. And
it was just peanut butter. It was like a punishment almost. It was like, eat this concrete sandwich every day for lunch and slurp it down with a completely high fructose corn syrup fruit cup. And, and then my dad would pack me an Eden soy for my beverage. And that was it, right? Back in the day, the little chocolate. Sometimes I got the chocolate. I was very excited about that. But, it's like, it's so amazing how far it's come,
Yes.
Because my treat, when I was a kid was, I can't remember, you'll probably, rice cream. Remember the little mint chocolate ice cream sandwiches? Like that with the rice? Yes. That was my treat,
Yes.
And now these kids can get like the SoCo, chocolate ice cream. I mean, it's just amazing.
No compromise. There's like nothing that they can't have. And I was going to say, I probably through my own desire that my son never feel like he's missing out, I probably
Yeah.
just went the extra 5 miles as I tend to do. So, like Thanksgiving was a big vegan Thanksgiving with our chosen family, and it would just be like up to the ceiling with vegan food, and like just like the Halloween parties were the same thing. But I remember, years ago when he was little and he would be on like play days with other kids and they would be eating those little cheddar goldfish crackers.
Yeah.
I bought, somehow or another, I found, before Google, I found itty bitty, what you call it, fish cutout things. And
Yes.
I would roll out this dough that was cheddary and make him homemade, so that he would have his cheesy crackers.
that like just totally breaks my heart. I mean, that is so amazing.
Oh, but you know what? I loved it because, like, I kind of embraced all of that. And, it was right around when things were shifting. It was right around when things were getting better for vegans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't mind. But anyway, Sangeeta, you had something.
Well, I had a question for Laura actually.
Yeah.
So, with that experience, did you ever regret being a vegan in your adult, like not adulthood, but maybe in your childhood?
Absolutely, all the time,
All
because
the
I
time.
wasn't normal.
Mhm.
And for me, it wasn't. It was kind of a twofold, right? Because not only was I vegan, I was also a Unitarian. So then it was like a twofold thing. So it was like, oh, so you don't eat meat and you hate Jesus. That was like the whole mentality of these kids. And I had a very, very little friends growing up because of that, because it was a big deal. And people didn't understand it. And that's the thing. Everyone's so small-minded. They can't comprehend, what this is and why I was doing it.
So, as an adult, then how did you stick to it then?
I've always loved animals. That was my thing, is I just knew what I was eating, and I got those little effers back, I mean, there was this one time we're sitting at the lunch table and, they're shoving a piece of meat in their face. Oh, it's so good. That would always happen to me. And then this girl's lecturing me, like, oh, well, God put meat on this earth for us to eat, and you're doing him a disservice by not eating it. And she's, eating Jell-O. And I said, how do those cow hooves taste? And she just goes, this isn't meat out of cow hooves. And she got so upset, she called like the cafeteria assistant over, and she goes, this isn't meat out of, she goes, no, it is. You are eating cow hooves, that's gelatin. And she got so upset. But it's like, it's just because people don't understand.
Yeah.
They don't get it. They think it just comes out of thin air and that you have your right to your meat, and they don't understand anything in between.
Right.
But it was mentally scarring. It really was. But I'm stronger now because of it.
Right.
So I wouldn't change it for the world now. But when I was a kid, there were so many times. And I remember actually, I tried to eat meat and I couldn't do it. Like, it was like instant throw up. I tried because I just wanted to be normal.
Right. Do you think there was anything your parents, not to blame them or anything, because obviously they were working with whatever, was available at the time. Do you think there's anything that they could have done to have made things a little easier for you?
Yeah, I mean, my dad could have stayed vegan. That was really hard for me.
Oh.
My parents got divorced. My mom stayed. My dad didn't, and my dad was the one teaching me about, animal rights and all this shit growing up. And then he goes back to eating, steak. So that was really hard for me. And then, well, it's really hard to feed you, Laura, because you're so expensive because of your lifestyle, well, can't you just try to eat meat? So then that conversation came about,
Wow.
So it was incredibly difficult. I mean, there were a lot of times I would sit on my floor and roll pennies to pay for my vegan meal for lunch. I mean, that was my reality because I didn't want to do it. But I'm sure, and in hindsight, I'm sure they feel that there was more they could have done now.
Right.
But parents are so lucky these days. I mean, it's so much easier. And
so
kids
much
know
easier.
what it is.
It's so much easier. And I know we're getting close to the end time here, but I just want to say that my son, we in 2006 or whenever it was that he started preschool, we live in a pretty progressive and diverse community, but he was still teased about bringing, in a so-called, zero tolerance for bullying school. He was still picked on about it. So it's it's not like we're in this magical time where,
Right.
but at the same time, it's so much easier. There's so
Yeah.
many more people, and so it's so much better. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, ladies, for a great show this evening.
So
I'm
there's one
sorry.
thing I want to close out with. One thing I want to close out with is the adults that are the bullies to the other adults who are parents.
Yes.
There are YouTube channels about it, and it's absolutely horrendous because they exploit vegan children and the adults that are raising them. And that's one of the reasons why I implore vegan parents to watch putting their child's or children's faces on the internet, because there are absolutely horrendous people out there. And the comments that have happened, I have one vendor that does vegan baby food, and there was a comment on her Instagram post about how that's not healthy for children. You can't raise children on vegan food. And you know what? Let's just dispel that right now. That is not the case. It is the healthiest thing that you could feed your children to raise them to be productive, not disease ridden adults. So that's a whole other show. We can go do a whole other show about the bullying
Yeah.
that happens. Yep. So, no, thank you, ladies. I'm glad I was able to come back.
Yeah, me too.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure to follow us next week. And we will see you soon. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.